There's a tiny sensor in your car right now, costs about $50 to replace. And if it fails, it can destroy a part that costs you $1,500 to $3,000. That's not an exaggeration. That's not me being dramatic. That's just how your car works. Today we're talking about oxygen sensors, how they fail, and why ignoring that check engine light could turn a cheap fix into a financial nightmare. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what's happening under your hood and how to protect yourself from paying for one of the most expensive, preventable repairs out there. Let's get into it. So what exactly is an oxygen sensor, and why should you care? Your engine burns fuel at a very specific ratio. And when there's too much fuel and not enough air, mechanics call that running rich. Flip that around, with too much air and not enough fuel, and that's running lean. Your car's computer constantly adjusts this mixture thousands of times while you drive, and the oxygen sensor is how it knows what's happening inside the exhaust. These little sensors sit in your exhaust system and measure how much oxygen is left over after combustion. When a lot of oxygen remains, the mixture ran too lean, and when almost none is left, the mixture ran too rich. That information goes straight to your car's computer, which then adjusts fuel delivery in real time to keep everything balanced. Now here's where things get interesting. Most cars have at least two of these sensors, with the upstream sensor sitting before your catalytic converter and the downstream sensor sitting after it. The upstream sensor controls your fuel mixture, making it the one that matters most, while the downstream sensor just monitors whether your catalytic converter is doing its job properly. When people warn you about oxygen sensor failure causing catalytic converter damage, they're talking about that upstream sensor. That's the one calling the shots, and that's the one that can empty your wallet. Let me explain exactly how this chain of destruction works, and I'm going to keep it simple. Your upstream oxygen sensor sends voltage signals to your car's computer, bouncing between about 0.1 volts and 0.9 volts, depending on conditions. Low voltage signals lean, high voltage signals rich, and the computer responds by adding or cutting fuel. When an oxygen sensor starts failing, it typically gets stuck sending wrong information or responds too slowly to changes. And that's when things start going sideways. Picture this scenario where your sensor gets stuck telling the computer the engine is running lean when everything is actually fine. The computer's response is to add more fuel to fix a problem that doesn't exist, which means your engine starts running rich because it's reacting to garbage data. All that extra unburned fuel doesn't just vanish into thin air. It flows right down into your exhaust system and dumps straight into your catalytic converter. Your catalytic converter is designed to clean up emissions. It contains precious metals like platinum, palladium, and rhodium that cause chemical reactions to convert harmful gases into less harmful ones. It normally runs hot, somewhere between 500 and 800 degrees Fahrenheit, and can get up to 1200 degrees under heavy load. But when unburned fuel enters the catalytic converter, it ignites. And when fuel burns inside a space designed to run hot, temperatures can exceed 1600 degrees. If it gets bad enough, you're looking at temperatures above 2000 degrees, and that's when the ceramic honeycomb structure inside the converter literally melts. Once that happens, the converter is toast. You'll hear rattling from broken ceramic pieces inside. In extreme cases, the converter glows red hot, which is actually a fire hazard. The melted ceramic block's exhaust flow causes severe engine problems, and you're now looking at a repair bill that starts at $1,500 and can easily exceed $3,000. All because of a sensor that costs $50 to $200. Now I already know what some of you are wondering, because the question comes up constantly. How long do you actually have if your oxygen sensor goes bad? And can you keep driving on it for a while? The honest answer depends entirely on how the sensor failed in the first place. Sensors that get severely stuck and cause your engine to run really rich can cause damage fast, potentially under 1,000 miles of driving. Real owners have posted on forums about driving with a bad sensor for 5,000 to 8,000 miles and ending up needing both the sensors and the catalytic converter replaced because their mechanic told them the cat had burned down from running rich. On the flip side, sensors that are just getting sluggish, meaning they still work but respond slowly, cause more gradual problems that build over time. You might drive tens of thousands of miles before serious converter damage shows up, but you're still bleeding money on gas the whole time, since you could be losing up to 40% of your fuel economy, and you're almost certain going to fail your emissions test. The bottom line is that this isn't a check engine light you want to ignore for long. Best case, you're throwing money away at the pump, and worst case, you're slowly cooking your catalytic converter from the inside. Let's go over how to spot a failing oxygen sensor before disaster hits, because your car will throw up warning signs if you know what to look for. The most obvious sign is the check engine light. Now, I know the check engine light can mean 100 different things, but oxygen sensor related codes are among the most common. If you get your codes read and see anything in the P0130 to P0167 range, that's oxygen sensor territory. P0131 means low voltage, which typically means your engine is being told to run rich. P0133 means slow response. P0134 means no activity at all. The sensor is dead. There's also the infamous P0420 code, which says catalyst efficiency below threshold. Here's something important. That code doesn't necessarily mean your catalytic converter is bad. Many repair shops have fixed P0420 codes simply by replacing the oxygen sensors. It's frequently misdiagnosed. If a shop immediately tells you that you need a new catalytic converter based on that code alone, get a second opinion. Beyond the codes, here are symptoms you might notice while driving. Decreased fuel economy is a big one. If you're suddenly getting noticeably worse mileage and nothing else has changed, a failing oxygen sensor could be the culprit. You might smell sulfur or rotten eggs from your exhaust. That's from the chemical reactions going wrong inside the converter. You might see black smoke from your tailpipe, which indicates your engine is running rich. You could experience rough idle, hesitation when you accelerate, or longer cranking times when starting cold. If you notice excessive heat coming from under your car near the center, or you see the converter housing has turned a bluish bronze color from heat discoloration, damage is likely already occurring. And if you ever see your catalytic converter glowing red, pull over immediately. That's a fire hazard. So how long do oxygen sensors actually last under normal conditions? And should you swap them out before they fail on you? The lifespan depends a lot on when your car rolled off the assembly line. Older vehicles from the 70s through the early 90s ran unheated sensors that were only good for about 30 to 50,000 miles. Cars from the mid-80s through the mid-90s with heated sensors typically got 60 to 80,000 miles out of them. Modern vehicles equipped with OBD2 systems, which covers anything built from 1996 forward, have sensors designed to last somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000 miles. Most automakers today don't publish a specific replacement interval for oxygen sensors anymore, since they're treated as replace when they fail parts. That said, a lot of experienced mechanics suggest proactively replacing upstream sensors around 80 to 100,000 miles just to stay ahead of potential problems before they start. Here's something that catches a lot of people off guard. Your oxygen sensors fall under federal emissions warranty coverage for 8 years or 80,000 miles on every vehicle sold in the United States. If your car sits within that window and a sensor fails, checking with your dealer before paying anything out of pocket could save you the entire bill. One thing worth addressing is the debate over whether this whole risk gets overblown, because you'll definitely find people online claiming they drove for years with a bad oxygen sensor and everything turned out fine. Here's what's actually going on with those stories. The type and severity of the failure matters a lot, since not every oxygen sensor failure causes the same damage. A sensor that's completely stuck telling the computer to dump fuel creates a dangerous situation that can cause rapid converter damage, while a sensor that's just responding slowly might only create gradual problems stretching over many thousands of miles. Some mechanics report seeing cars driven for years with faulty sensors where the converters held up fine once the sensors finally got replaced. Other mechanics have watched converters get destroyed in a matter of months or even weeks, depending on the failure type. The catch is that you have no way of knowing which type of failure you're dealing with unless you're actively monitoring live data from your car's computer. playing the odds and hoping your particular failure is the harmless kind makes a lot less sense than just addressing oxygen sensor codes when they pop up. Let me break down the actual costs, because this is where the math really drives the point home. Oxygen sensor replacement typically runs between about $150 and $500 total when you factor in parts and labor. Sensors by themselves can cost as little as $50 if you're tackling the job yourself, or they can climb to a few hundred for OEM parts through a dealership. But labor stays reasonable because these sensors are designed for easy access. Catalytic converter replacement lives in a completely different price bracket. Repair data shows most converter replacements landing between about $1,700 and $2,500, with some vehicles running even higher than that. OEM converters straight from the manufacturer can hit $1,500 to $4,000 just for the part before anyone charges labor. California residents face an even steeper bill since CARB-compliant converters are mandatory there and cost 20 to 40% more. Running the numbers makes the choice pretty clear. Replacing an oxygen sensor quickly might cost you $200, while ignoring the problem until it kills your converter could run $2,000 or more. That gap represents potential savings of at least $500 to $2,000 just by dealing with the issue before it snowballs. When replacement time comes around, the question of OEM versus aftermarket parts always comes up. Several aftermarket oxygen sensor brands have earned solid reputations with mechanics. Denso and NGK, which uses the NTK name for their sensor line, deliver OEM quality according to most technicians. Bosch actually invented the oxygen sensor back in 1976 and produces excellent sensors, especially for European vehicles. And these companies supply sensors directly to car manufacturers, so buying them aftermarket often gets you identical quality for less money. The sensors worth avoiding are the ultra-cheap, no-name brands filling up bargain bins online. Automotive forums overflow with stories about cheap sensors failing within months of installation. And a sensor that dies again in 6 months isn't saving you anything at all. Toyota and Honda owners should pay attention to this next part. Plenty of discussion online suggests OEM sensors perform better than aftermarket options, specifically on Asian vehicles. And if you own one and want to play it safe, Denso and NGK both operate as Japanese companies that supply these manufacturers directly. Either brand gives you OEM quality without the dealer markup. For anyone who likes turning wrenches at home, replacing an oxygen sensor falls within reach for most DIYers, but a few details matter. Using the right anti-seize compound on the threads makes a difference, and it should be nickel-based rather than copper, applied only to the threads and never on the sensor tip itself. Hand threading the sensor until it feels snug prevents cross-threading the bung, then torquing to spec finishes the job. Standard M18 sensors call for about 26 to 33 foot-pounds of torque, and keeping an impact wrench away from this job protects the threads from getting stripped. Checking that the wire isn't twisted or kinked after installation protects the delicate internal components from damage. Old sensors that have seized in place after years of heat and corrosion exposure need patience to remove, so soaking them with penetrating oil and working them out carefully prevents bigger problems. A special oxygen sensor socket with a slot cut out for the wire makes the whole job go smoother. Taking a step back to look at what's been happening in the catalytic converter market adds another reason why protecting yours matters more than ever. Catalytic converters became a huge theft target starting around 2020, with the problem peaking in 2022 when thieves swiped over 64,000 of them nationwide. The theft spiked because converters contain valuable precious metals, and prices for rhodium, platinum, and palladium shot through the roof during that period. Theft rates have dropped significantly since then as new laws crack down on scrap metal recyclers, police ran sting operations, and metal prices came back down. But here's what happened to the supply chain during that epidemic, because it got absolutely hammered. Some OEM converters, especially for popular vehicles like the Toyota Prius, faced backlogs stretching past 6 months, and prices climbed across the board for everyone. The situation improved through 2024 and into 2025, though OEM shortages still affect some high-demand models, and prices haven't dropped back to pre-2020 levels. Insurance claims for stolen converter replacements averaged around $2,900 in 2024. All of which means protecting your catalytic converter carries more weight now than it used to. One of the best ways to keep it safe is making sure your engine isn't slowly destroying it from the inside through a problem you could have fixed for a couple $100. Let me lay out a quick action plan pulling together everything we've covered today. When your check engine light comes on, get those codes read since many auto parts stores will do it free of charge. And write down every code that appears rather than just the first one. Codes showing up in the oxygen sensor range, especially upstream sensor codes, deserve attention rather than getting ignored. So get a diagnosis confirming which sensor failed and what type of failure you're dealing with. Being told you need a catalytic converter replacement based on AP0420 code alone warrants a second opinion because sensor replacements fix a lot of those cases. Cars still under 8 years and 80,000 miles might have federal emissions warranty coverage remaining. So checking on that before paying out of pocket makes sense. Vehicles past 100,000 miles still running on original oxygen sensors could benefit from proactive upstream sensor replacement as preventive maintenance before problems develop. Smelling rotten eggs, seeing black smoke, feeling extreme heat from under your car, or spotting a glowing red catalytic converter all mean you should stop driving immediately and address whatever is causing it. Your oxygen sensors cost almost nothing to replace compared to your catalytic converter. When a failing $50 sensor feeds your car's computer the wrong data and causes it to dump extra fuel into the exhaust, that fuel ignites inside your converter and generates temperatures that can literally melt the internal structure. Once that ceramic honeycomb turns to slag, your repair bill can blow past $3,000 without breaking a sweat. The good news is that none of this has to happen to you. Paying attention to your check engine light, understanding what oxygen sensor codes actually mean, and refusing to assume everything is fine just because the car still runs. All of that keeps you ahead of the problem. Addressing the issue while it's still a $200 fix beats waiting until it becomes a $2,000 disaster by a mile. That's how you save money and take care of your car the right way. If this video helped you understand your vehicle better, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. New content drops every week focused on helping everyday drivers save money and avoid getting taken advantage of at the shop. Drop a comment below if you've dealt with oxygen sensor or catalytic converter problems before, because I'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, take care of your car and thanks for watching.